a little closer. You ask if I want to join you. The night, the night, the night, the night, the night, the night. Slowly it's taking over. My body can't control now. I feel like I can fly, can fly, can fly, can fly, can fly. Touch me, show me all your demons. Surrender all my feelings. Make me levitate. Love gives me so high. Love gives me. Words are hard to find when my mind is painting blurry lines. Someone please come save me, cause I'm falling hard, I cannot take it. I just wanna feel your love. Need someone to hold me before I get lost. Catch me cause I'm flying up, I see the stars and magnify. Touch me, show me all your demons. Surrender all my feelings. Make me levitate. Love gives me so high. Turn up the bass, turn up the bass, turn up the bass, turn up the volume, turn up the bass, turn up the bass, turn up the bass, turn up the volume, turn up the bass, 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 turn up the volume. Volume. Volume, 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 volume. So now you're telling me you volume. Volume, 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 volume. So now you're telling me you turn up the bass, turn up the volume, 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 turn up the bass, turn up the volume. Volume. Volume, 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 volume. So now you're telling me you volume.
That's right.
Volume,
I'm alive.
volume, volume.
I'm back.
So now you're telling me you
I have returned. I know, it's crazy. It's been a minute, like a week, almost two. Been a minute. Also, hi, Kian. Glad to see you're here, too. I have returned. I have awakened from thy slumber. Man, has been a minute since I did this. I kind of forgot how to do this. Shit. I guess I'm just kind of winging it. Also, just so everyone on Twitch can see this too. Wait, hang on. It's gonna loop in a minute. Wait. Look at this. Look at this. Oh shit. Are you seeing this? I know this is a bit of an older clip, but it's too good not to share this. Even though it's like 10 or 14 years old at this point. I like this clip too much not to look at it. Not to share it. I love it too much to not share it. People are gonna stumble across this in the shorts feed and they're gonna be like, what the fuck? You king dog. You king dog. You king dog. I love it. I love it. Ian, do you see this? I'm interested as to what your thoughts are. Is this not peak cinema or what? The puking, humping dog just doing his thing. Holy shit. Yeah, so I guess while I have this going, talking points. It's been a hot minute since I last streamed. It has been. It's just that I just been feeling exhausted this last week. Just been kind of burnt out, so I'm like, you know what? I'm taking a break. And you know what? Break time's over. Break time is over. Time to get back into the swing of things. I'm gonna start not with a game, but with this. With the vomit just going to a bar on the pool. Yeah, he got so excited that he vomited, and he starts licking it up too. This is an oldie but a goodie. I just have it on loop. The music too is perfect in combination with this. I love it. What better way to start off than with this? Than with the puking sex mutt, the puking dog. Oh my god. I like him. I like him a lot. Holy shit. Gotta blank this out for a minute. Oh. Wait, why are my labels on the... Not labels, social media labels on the... That's weird. Oh, it's on the YouTube vertical thing. Right, so... And also the chat box is on the vertical stream. I don't know why, but it is. So I'm gonna switch on over to something else real quick. I want to take a moment to revisit King Cobra JFS, where he shares a tale from his childhood. Just a word of warning, it's fucking weird. It is one of the most weird, messed up things he has ever told anybody. Now, this... Second, let me get it on screen. Bam. There we go. This clip is by Tarman. Or is clipped by Tarman. Support the original upload, the original channel. Support Tarman, or I'll hunt you down. Anyway, this was taken from the deleted 8-hour vodka stream, which that just sounds like a whole lot of fun. And you can see the title. Oh no. I don't even want to read the title. It's just bad.
Where it's just like, I know pedophiles are creepy, but how hot was she?
But how hot was she? Jesus. Oh no. Oh, Cobes. Oh, buddy. Oh no. Oh, buddy. This is from like 2 years ago, by the way. Check his computer ASAP. Yes, please. We need to keep tabs on this man. We need to make sure that he's still the sweet boy we all know and love. We cannot allow Cobra to go down the dark side. We cannot allow this.
Speaking as a man who went through puberty as a boy, I'm speaking my truth, dude. When you're so fucking horny, you make out with your Britney Spears poster, like, I wonder what boobies feel like. Oh, wait.
Making out with his Britney Spears poster, fantasizing about tits.
I got to feel what boobies feel like when I was...
So far, brilliant. Except, no. Just what a real strong start, huh?
I got to feel what boobies feel like when I was in junior high. And it was with a nice, lovely girl. It was totally consensual. We were both special needs. We were hanging out with a friend of mine. We were hanging out in the forest. It was a hot summer's afternoon before the school year. And all I did was ask literally the chick that I was talking with, hey, can you show me your boobs, please? And
No.
she lifted up her
Oh.
shirt, and it was just like, you
Why
never
does she agree
forget
to
your
this?
first pair of boobs, dude. I
Never
gave him a
forget.
fucking squeeze consensually, and I went in to kiss her, and she backed off a little bit, you know?
Yeah, that sounds real consensual. She backs away as you go in to try and score. What the fuck?
So I'm like, okay, hold up. Let me reinvent this shit.
Reinvent this? You mean try a different strategy? What? I wonder what his different strategy is. Let's find out. You're gonna love this.
I whipped out my dick and started whacking one off and busted her nuts. And she was into it too, dude. She was just like, hey, make that white stuff come out again. I mean, to be fair, when you're a horny white stuff, into it too, dude. She was just like, hey, make that white stuff come out again.
Now that's an epic quote. That has been referenced a bunch on on uh on other like YouTube spaces and Reddit and shit, and you know, amongst other people who keep track of Cobes and his activities. Hey, make that white stuff come out again. Oh my god. Oh god, did I spit on my smaller monitor? Yes, I did. God damn it.
I mean, to be fair, when you're a horny preteen and you're experimenting with other horny preteens, just doing kid shit, you know, it's perfectly innocent.
It didn't sound very
But
innocent.
at the same time, you got to teach kids about condoms and safe sex. Otherwise, we're going to continue to have fucking retards.
Oh no 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 no! I forgot that he drops the R bomb. Oh, hang on. Oh no, I wasn't. I forgot that he says that. Dude makes me feel good about myself. Oh, if you feel good about yourself now, the next guy we're gonna look at is gonna make you feel like God himself. If you thought Cobes was a weirdo, oh boy, you're gonna strap yourself in for our next cartoon character.
In our society. Yeah. And I regret calling her retarded when I talked about it, but she was special needs. Then again, someone
I do not condone the use of that word. Oh no.
why she wasn't so special needs though that she couldn't
Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. Wink, wink.
function, you know. She was special needs enough to where people noticed, but like she wasn't so retarded that she drooled on herself. You know, so like, hey,
No.
you know, you take what you can get. You get rejected.
Cobes, no, bad. Bad Cobes. Down. Down, Cobes. Sit. You don't say that. Understand? You down, boy. Down. No treats for you.
By every chick you've liked since the 4th fucking grade. and then you're hanging out with one of your guy buddies, and he happens to know a chick, and she's totally consenting to show off her titties. You know, you never forget your first pair of boobs. That's just all innocent kid shit. You know what I'm saying?
No! I don't know
And
what
that's
you're saying.
perfectly innocent. As long as you're being smart about it, who cares? There's a big difference between kids doing shit with each other versus, okay, some creepy ass 40-year-old motherfucker. Did I say that out loud? I
You
may
sure
have the
did.
hiccups from the vodka,
You sure did say that out loud.
but that's the fucking truth. There's a big difference between kids experimenting sexually with each other, and maybe the adults don't like it, but you're not going to
No.
stop them. You tell your kids not to smoke cigarettes, not to have sex, and not to smoke marijuana and all that stupid bullshit. Yep, see how far that gets you. When your
What?
kid goes to a fucking party and they're peer pressured to try these things. That's why it's important to talk about safe sex and making the right decision instead of being outright afraid and disgusted and mortified, which we've all been there. Nobody wants to think about your kid sister doing the nasty. Whereas
Oh my god. That was that was that. That was King Cobra's white stuff story. Jeez, I'm glad he hasn't said anything like that since then. As far as I know, he hasn't said or done anything like that. Uh, doesn't do stuff like that anymore, so. Though who knows, he may end up backsliding a bit. I hope he doesn't. I hope he makes improvements. Oh, God. Hey, make that white stuff come out again. That's my favorite quote from this. Oh, God damn it. My favorite.
Clearly the work of the devil.
Oh, God. But yeah, that was a bit of an older King Cobra clip from his previous apartment before he had to move again. But now we have another character. Here is a video by Rogue Internet Man. You may have heard of him. You may have watched a video or two from this person. Yeah, this is his video. Go support the original creator. Actually, you know what? As a matter of fact, copy link, put it in both the chats. Bam. Support him! Support him, or you have no heart. Just give a like, give a subscribe, and all that stuff. So yeah. This man, we're about to look at a man named Brett Keane, who has been on the internet since, I think, before YouTube, or maybe since the beginning of YouTube. This dude's a YouTube veteran, but he's not a well-liked individual. He has put himself in a very bad situation. But yeah, we have the individual Brett Keane situation. Yeah, Brett Keane particular individual scammer situation. Locale library. So, let us begin.
Clearly the work of the devil. They are clearly the work of Satan, and you don't receive it anymore. Stand on the authority that Jesus Christ has given you and say, Lord, I believe.
Come on, Gord. By the way, he in words like on, he ends up adding the letter R to the end of it, so it turns into orn. Yeah, this dude's got like a whole dictionary of just broken English and terrible grammar.
The YouTube landscape has radically changed in the 20 years that it's been up. Starting off as a humble video hosting resource where random people could upload different
Danny the Tourette's guy.
pieces of media that they've compiled or recorded in passing, which does still happen
He's my raid alert.
today, mind you, but it has evolved into a massive multimedia service that corporations, talented individuals, unusual specimen, normal folk, and the eccentric types from all corners of the internet use. As time has moved on, the hot topics on the website have also changed, ranging from goofy cat videos, haphazardly recorded videos of people dancing in their bedrooms, to debates on serious topics like social issues and politics. One such back-and-forth topic that garnered hundreds of thousands of curious onlookers was the theism versus atheism debate. You know, two or more people that had already made up their minds on the genesis of the world going back and forth on an endless debate of whose creator did what thing.
A couple of other
even happened. Many
interesting
personalities
characters
have come and gone, ranging from the remarkably unremarkable to the quotable notables. Anybody can have an opinion on anything, but the topic of theology always brings varied perspectives, most of them being radical in some form. In the early days, one particular individual found himself in a situation that few had truly been in. He was amassing a sizable following for speaking his mind on video, and there was no involvement of production companies or reputable agencies. Just a guy, his microphone, and his thoughts. This person is none other than
and
Brett
his
Keane,
gums.
one of the first YouTube atheist channels.
Look at his stupid, toothless, fucking bullfrog face. Alright, so you want to guess how old this dude is? You want to guess? Just a fun little game. Like, try to guess his age. Anyone? Any takers? Going once. Going twice. Going thrice. He's 48. Let's put this into perspective. This dude, 48 years old. My father, he's 53, right? But my father looks like he's in his mid to late 30s. In comparison to Brett Keane. My dad is older, but my dad looks younger. The hills have eyes. Family finally had a kid with a non-relative. Is that how Brett Keane came to be? Is that how you... Is that the particular theory of this individual situation?
that helped pave the way for other skeptic channels that would soon follow,
Oh,
particularly
man.
DJ Kirk, better known as the Amazing Atheist and the receiver of all bananas. Brett was left in the dust by everyone else that came after him, and once he
There's like a 10-hour or like 1-hour loop of Brett just eating in the microphone, just like that. Jesus. Yeah, he would also clash a lot with YouTuber Amazing Atheist or TJ Kirk, however you want to call him. He still like talks about him to this day, even though him and TJ haven't interacted in years. Was it like 8 or 9 years now since they last engaged with each other or something? Getting close to a full decade, I know that.
Brett was left in the dust by
But Brett is obsessed. He is obsessed with the Amazing Atheist.
everyone else that came after him, and once he had made the decision to believe in a god, his credibility tanked lower than he had expected, thus beginning the never-ending decline of his online presence. Brett's fall from grace was swift, but not painless. The decisions he made ultimately doomed him very early on, and spawned a lengthy tale of corruption, illicit behavior, and grand delusions. This is the tale of Brett Keane, the actions
And wife
he made,
beating.
the consequences for his innumerable
I love this drawing of him too. They even show a little tinge of the gums. Look at it. Even got the hair on the shoulders.
bad decisions, and his legacy that will outlive him when he goes out without much as a whimper. Before we can properly dive into things, it's of the utmost importance that I let everyone know that Brett
Why does he look like he tried to intimidate Steven Seagal? Like, look at how he's dressed.
Keane, despite being a hilarious manatee,
Nuts.
is an unscrupulous man who abuses systems set in place to help people, just so he can
Oh yeah, another nickname for this dude is the Manatee.
silence dissenting opinions. So, because of the nature of this video, I would
Which
not
makes me feel bad for manatees.
be surprised if he does get a little upset. Brett, if you're watching, everything I'm going to do in this video falls under fair use. You have even uploaded video where you gave everybody full consent to mirror your videos. I used publicly available mirrors and provided adequate commentary and criticism throughout. This is totally legal and you consented to it.
Hello folks, this is Brett Keane. This is going to be a very short
Where is your shirt? Also, does he sound exactly like how you imagined? I bet he did.
Legal and you consented to it.
Hello folks, this is Brett Keane. This is going to be a very short video. Anyone, whether you're atheist, agnostic, or Christian on YouTube, you may take all of my videos, if you feel like it, or whatever you like, and post it all over different channels. You can post it on Yahoo, you can post it on Google.
On Yahoo? He calls it Yahoo? He calls it Yahoo. He calls Yahoo Yahoo. He calls...
Anything you want. Hell, you can
Jesus.
play them on Stickam. Yahoo, you can post
Dang
it
it.
all over different channels. You can post it on Yahoo, you can post it on
Yahoo?
Google. Anything you want. Hell, you can play them on Stickam accounts if you want. The reason why I'm giving you permission to do this, anybody, is because I believe that the Muslims are going to try to ban me for this new thing I got going on where I'm basically posting all these videos up about Islam and about what the Muslims
Islam. First of all, he pronounces it Islam. Second of all, he thinks Muslims are after him for some reason. Since when, how, and why? What are you talking about, man?
are about.
Also, he had teeth in that clip. He had a little bit of teeth. And, oh my god. Here's a more recent pic. Or sort of recent.
Years before he would discover that his purpose was to sit in front of a computer and complain and beg for money, Brett had to figure his life out. He was born to a relatively poor family in Festus, which is a filthy armpit of St. Louis, Missouri. St.
A
Louis has
filthy
pretty much
armpit.
always been a rough city, having experienced many decades of neglect. The lower income neighborhoods that reside within it are mostly affected by a high crime rate and a general lack of care by the city's government. Brett's claims about his youth are
That's
questionable at
unfortunate.
best. He's claimed that he was bullied and harassed, but he would stand up for the victims of needless prodding. He was a social outcast who didn't have a lot of friends and didn't really mix well with others. His stories are likely nonsense considering that Brett has always been an isolated, overweight, socially awkward person. On top of this, Brett allegedly suffers from agoraphobia, an anxiety disorder that causes a person to be deathly afraid of being in instances where they cannot easily remove themselves from a situation, such as an event or a gathering, let alone leaving the house. This makes his claims of being outside and standing up for the bullied kids and getting into fights on the mean streets of St. Louis dubious at best.
Situation.
Brett has always struggled with religious
This is the
ideology.
best
When he was
situation.
younger, he rejected Judeo-Christian theology, accepting his own skewed view of scientific research as absolute fact. He figured that the world around him is so messed up and cruel that there is no possible way that a loving creator could exist. Now, I'm not here to argue for any type of religious mindset. I'm not one to immediately believe the words of theologians who spread the message of this week's flavor of God, but I also don't believe it's necessary to disparage people because of their belief, or lack thereof. Jokes, however, are fine. Jokes are jokes. Brett dabbled with his interest in the creation of man and the power of deities with his own
Oh, that's right. He tried being a writer. He tried to be an author. He made Eternal Undying Love, or Undying Lorve, as he would probably pronounce it. There's the URL down there. Damn.
own book series,
GodHatesYou.org.
starting with Eternal Undying Love, a
That's
book
crazy.
that he threw together and released on May 30th, 2000.
What's with the pixelated fire? Why does the cover look so terrible?
2004. 258 pages of total nonsense.
Like, did
This
he
book
even try? Did this man even try?
served to tell a fictitious story about dealing with demonic entities and vampires. Yes, you heard that right. Fucking vampires.
Demons
The
and
description reads
vampires.
as follows. In the small town of Quiet Meadows, a gateway to hell is opened. The rise of an antichrist takes place as the demon army tries to take control of the world. Can
Well,
Detective
shit.
Stalker and his rookie partner Don save the
Detective
human
Stalker. Who the hell is named Stalker? That's a terrible name to be associated with. That makes you sound like a criminal.
race from the inevitable? Discover the planet Golgothica, a world inhabited by vampires. Read about the
Wait. Wait. Another planet? Golgothica? So wait. The vampires are also aliens? What? Okay.
war between angels and demons for supreme control of Earth.
They're
This
space
book will
aliens.
Take you into hell and back. The book incorporates vampires, demons, and other mythological characters.
Like
Wow,
aliens.
I'm surprised I never saw this at a Scholastic book fair, given the subject matter and the grade level of his writing. The cover art is incredible, showing what appears to be a demonic baby, perhaps the Antichrist floating in limbo in front of gothic imagery with some edgy flames. Next to Times New
That
Roman
baby
text
looks
that
horrified to be a part of this cover.
reads Eternal Undying Love in plain view, alongside a URL that goes to GodHatesYou.org, a website that no longer exists. Even better, the back cover shows a younger Brett, sporting shades and a cool-looking getup. Outside of all
Oh, what he
places,
used
this
to
is strange
be.
considering he's supposed to be scared shitless of the outdoors. Huh. It appears this has happened several times. He must be doing quite well for himself despite having a horrific phobia of the world around him. Anyway, this story eventually mutated into an entire trilogy, with 2 follow-up entries respectively titled Eternal
There's
Undying
more.
Love 2, The Second Coming, and Eternal Undying Love 3, Serpents in the Cradle. Before we move on with his story,
I'm listening whilst doing some stuff, but whilst I think of it, that's alright.
story, I want to cover his books just a teeny tiny bit
You
more,
do you,
so bear
man.
with me. These things are pretty important in the bigger picture of his character. The Second Coming is a 244-page roller coaster of fecal literature. The cover for it is yet another illegible masterpiece, and the description states the following. The apocalyptic sequel to Eternal Undying Love has arrived. A war between heaven and hell. A new world order threatens humanity. 7 chosen warriors try
Sounds
to bring
intense.
the world into a universe of chaos. Will love win in the end, or will evil take its place upon the throne? Will mankind live to see another day, or will Revelation spell the last chapter in our story? Journey through the insane asylum with the mysterious man in black. Stand in awe as the dead arise and walk again. Watch in horror.
So now we
as
got
the seas turn
zombies.
to blood. Discover life as it hinges on death. Learn the true meaning of eternal undying love. The Second Coming. Serpents in the Cradle has, you guessed it, a fugly cover and a nonsensical description.
Try checking out
It's a
Into the
whopping
Dead,
304
Our
pages
Darkest
this
Days.
time around,
Okay.
featuring unmolested, unfiltered, rancid writing. The Man in Black is back, darker and more mysterious than ever in this third of an epic trilogy. In this journey through hell, he faces a threat even more powerful than the demons, the Angels of War. Detective John Reznor discovers that he has an incurable disease, as he faces a madman who hopes to destroy an entire city. Fabian finds a strange portal that leads to outer dimensions, followed by a newfound power. Gamora's sister, Delilah, creates a new breed of vampires and werewolves. Dark secrets are revealed in these
Now we got
nightmare-filled
werewolves
pages.
involved.
As this book takes you to its climax, it will surely bring the walls of hell down upon you. Ooh, so edgy. Those of you who like to read, please give these books a try. They're good for
And he
satiety.
tried shoving a little bit of everything in there. Vampires, aliens that are also vampires, demons, angels, fallen angels, werewolves. Did I say zombies already? I don't know. If I didn't already, zombies. Just portals and multiple dimensions, all that shit.
Morbid curiosity.
That's such a good recipe for success. I don't see how this could possibly fail.
Of nothing else. Sometimes it's fun to partake in the worst possible media that you can find. It'll make you appreciate things that you do enjoy. And who knows, maybe Brett's magnum opus will motivate you to achieve your literary dreams. I hope you're ready for Brett's tactless penmanship, as he says things like the blacks to refer to a group of black people, that sort of stuff. If you want to listen to the first 6 chapters of Eternal Undying Love, there's a 3.5-hour-long feature of narration provided by Mr. Christo.
Yeah, he
and
does have
compiled
some
into a
old
long-form video
racist
by
grandpa speak.
6413 that I've included in this vid's description.
Situation.
Anyhow, we should
The
probably
description
move along.
situation.
Brett would continue to write blog posts and silly little stories as the years
Oh
went
my
on.
god,
When
he
YouTube
looks
finally
like he's
showed up on the web,
70.
which at the time was incredible because there were very
At
few
least.
viable video hosting resources online at the time. Brett
At least
saw
he
an
had teeth in
opportunity
this
to get
clip.
in on a brand new bustling market. YouTube was, for the most part, yet another section of the Wild West of the web, meaning that this was a period where everyone was throwing things at the wall to see what would stick. You had early concepts of memes, being referred to as fads at the time by the current generation that had been using YTMND for years prior to this. Things like Numa Numa Guy, Keyboard Cat, the Dramatic Chipmunk, that sort of stuff. Because
The
of the
Numa Numa
popularity
Guy.
of the thing
I
similar to what
remember
I
him.
just mentioned, commentary was kind of a taboo concept
Those
at
were
the
the
time.
days.
Sure, the site's motto was broadcast yourself, but most people saw the site as a means to make funny skits or tutorials on how to do specific
Gotta be
things.
you in 10
Someone
years.
using the
I
website
fucking
as a
hope
means to
not.
talk about their life, share their feelings, and debate
I
topics in
refuse.
video form
I
was a foreign
refuse to
concept
turn
at
into
the
Brett
time.
Keane.
Now, Brett had his own litany of channels over the years, and there's
Never.
no possible way for
I
me to keep track of all of
refuse.
them and document every last thing, so I've had to source a lot of my information from a string of websites, first-hand accounts, and short anti-Keane videos that point out his flaws. If there's any inconsistencies, I apologize. I'm working with what I could find. Early on, Brett referred to himself as the Stallion. Now,
Yeah, that's right. He did try to refer to himself as the Stallion. I get it because I'm hauling like a horse in a situation. Hey everyone, it's the Stallion, and I just want to let you know that I'm pretty hung like a stallion situation. What the fuck?
tell me, ladies and gentlemen, does this man look like a stallion to you? In my
No.
mind, the name stallion evokes an image of a man who is conventionally attractive, maybe muscular or toned, able to last for hours in bed. and maybe somehow can make your dreams come true. Brett doesn't really seem to tick any of those boxes, you know? What is it with men that don't fit the bill of being attractive, always resorting to calling themselves studs or stallions or kings or chads or anything else in that vein? Is it some kind of
I don't
self-deprecating
know.
joke? Is it a genuine delusion held by people whose brains are made up of wet dog shit? These are the types of things that keep me up at night.
Self-obsession,
My
I
standards for my
guess.
sleep deprivation are remarkably low, huh? Anyway, one video that has always stood out to me due to the dramatic irony pouring out
Teen
from it is
Invasion?
God's Sanctuary, which
Or
was
Teen
uploaded
Vision?
back in 2007. This video starts off strong, with Brett comparing himself to another YouTuber who masked his identity,
Because I think the E is silent.
ran his mouth about
The
other
end.
people online, and generally provided no real valid criticism, all while sitting on their ass. Basically what I do. I just love this kind of irony. A woman he knew as Lisa was a Christian individual, so as such she was going to spread
Christian
the word
individual.
of God. Many religious types on the web had discovered that discourse was easier than ever to engage in, given that everybody had immediate, direct access to each other via instant messaging and chat rooms. Brett, of course, found this interesting, because Lisa allowed anyone and everyone to come into her chat room, titled God's Sanctuary, to discuss the finer points of creation and stories in the Bible, and all of that fun stuff that people tend to believe in without any tangible evidence.
But I went into her room, and it's called God's Sanctuary. That's what
You
she
went into
calls
her
it.
room?
She's
Whoa.
a Christian lady, and what she does
That
is
sounds a little
she makes
suspicious.
this room, and atheists and agnostics and pagans and deists and everybody under the sun comes into the room.
Brett was not a fan of Lisa laying down the ground rules for her electronic parley. Lisa most likely knew that people tend to get heated when discussing the existence of an all-powerful God, or the lack thereof, and wanted to make sure that all parties would be able to interact with one another without hindrance. So rules had to be put in place and explained, and that would take time. Brett, being an impatient man when he literally had nothing but time, took issue with Lisa for trying to do her due diligence.
And she likes to spend almost 30 minutes blabbing about
Manatee has no
rules that
patience.
she's made for the room.
Unfortunately for Lisa, Brett was irritated that her God's Sanctuary chat room was specifically for those that are of Christian faith, meaning that she actually did not want to converse with atheists or other people that believe in different gods, as her channel was specifically for her type of people.
Or decency.
Now, I
Yeah.
get it. He wanted to have a dialogue about something that is very important to both of them. But conversely, why not just let people do what they want?
Yeah, you don't know the
Maybe
half of it,
maybe they're
dude.
not, but
It
her
gets
desire to be
even
around other
better and
like-minded
better.
people is not inherently wrong.
Or should I say worse?
If you're a non-believer or someone who's not Christian, or you're of this particular Christian denomination,
Particular.
then we don't want to hear your questions. We don't want to hear anything that you have to say. This room is about God. This room is about God, and that's all we talk about most of the time.
But, of course, Lisa was a woman with problems and likely lacked the avenues to break down the things that had been bothering her. According to Brett's questionable recollection, Lisa would rather complain about the things that were wrong in her life instead of praising the good Lord and spreading the word of God, yada yada yada. He initially claimed to be fine with this because everyone has problems and who doesn't need to vent every once in a while? Well, he directly contradicts this mindset by giving the same woman shit about it.
But it's funny because I've visited this woman's room a few times, and she's always talking about herself and her problems and about her family issues and all that shit. Now, I'm fine with that. People got personal problems. They want to talk about it. They want to vent. But I just don't understand why she's got to lie and say that it's about God, because it really isn't. I haven't heard any Bible out of her in the past year when I've chatted with her. I've never heard her attempt to answer any questions biblically.
Complains
or even try to
about
bring anybody closer to
her
God,
personal
or
life and her
at least a
family
better
situation,
understanding of where she's coming from.
and trying to link it to the Bible, you say. Who does that sound like? Yeah, this is before he made his heel turn. Well, I guess he's always been a heel. This is before he made his religious turn. So, this is a very ironic statement looking back on this now. You know what I mean? Now that he's completely flipped.
It's always been about her. And I don't think that that's as annoying as just sitting up there listening to a person
Sitting
for
there.
30 minutes try to control other people that she doesn't even know.
Sitting
Only
there.
willing to listen to the people that agree with her and are willing to sit there and listen to her stories.
Sit there. He
The irony
keeps...
of a man in
That's two sit there's. as far as I could tell.
Missouri who had no job nor a drive to get up off his ass
Got
and
a
make
double
something of
sit
himself,
there.
taking time out of his incredibly busy day of doing
Dude, there's a whole, like, a list of terms and words just for this guy and of this dude. Like, even just regular, like, proper words, but he just uses them way too many times. And, of course, broken English, bad grammar, stuff like that. It is commonly referred to as Keenisms. Got a little Brett Keane dictionary.
literally nothing, just to get pissed at people on the internet for having opinions and believing in God really is quite interesting. I love when characters are needlessly complex in my stories. It makes things so much more exciting. Why could he not just let her do her thing? Why did some random woman online matter that much to him? Brett had made a habit of getting bent out of shape because people were exercising their freedom of choice. The alleged atheist was fine doing his own thing, but by golly, you better not do something that he wouldn't. Somehow, some way, a random person online trying to make friends and converse with other like-minded individuals makes her controlling, I guess. Brett sure put that juicy noggin of his to good use. This video is great in my opinion because it carefully outlines the future that he would inevitably have. When the years moved forward, Brett found himself aping a lot of the same behaviors of this Lisa woman. He later changed faith and tried to discuss religion with other God believers, setting up defensive walls to keep unruly atheists out, removing people from the chat room when he felt his personal beliefs were under attack by one of
Yeah, he
God
completely
Jesus's
flipped the
creations.
script.
Situation.
Another upload of his that sticks out in my
Situation.
feeble mind is a video from 17 years ago called When I Was a Christian, where Mr. Keene carefully dissected what he was like when he was a person who believed in the divinity of Christ. Isn't it strange that he believed but also didn't believe? Truly peculiar how his story is consistently inconsistent, isn't it? At this very moment, he believed that him being indoctrinated into a belief
beautiful
system
stuff,
that
folks.
required faith such as religion was wrong and unfair, because I guess children rarely get a say in what they believe. But then again, who fucking cares? Brett has historically always seen himself as some kind of astute, deep thinker, who is able to problem solve and work out situations in his head that others are seemingly incapable of even attempting to understand. This is actually a pervasive issue that he struggles with to this very day. Perhaps saying he struggles with it is a bit bold considering he doesn't even seem to honestly believe he's in the wrong about anything, well, ever. In the aforementioned video, Brett methodically explained what Christianity had done to him and the faults that it presented in his character. For one, he hated it because it made him less intelligent in his mind. I'm not entirely sure how high the bar is in this world for remarkable brain power, but I guess kids are already stupid, so organized religion could only make them dumber, right?
I hated it because it caused me a lot of serious dysfunctions, issues in my life. One of the things that it caused me is that it caused me to be extremely dumb, uneducated, and ignorant. I'm talking about me, not all Christians, about what it did to me.
He carefully backtracked and made sure to clarify that it wasn't all Christians who were stupid, just him. God used his spooky cosmic deity powers to manifest a lack of intelligence in young Brett's mind. However, other Christians were unaffected by the contagious levels of ignorance that was bestowed upon him because he believed in a God. This doesn't make any sense. Why is he the special case that gets aggressively dumber when he believes in God, but others don't? I mean, I agree with him on the parts about him being a dunce, but why is he so special that he gets divine stupidity? What the hell is he even trying to say? Somehow, despite Bretty Boy being a staunch atheist who spent countless hours picking apart the dichotomies of theology, he fails to understand why most religions, specifically those that depict creation via means of supernatural intervention like God or gods, don't study or spread scientific information that directly contradicts their beliefs.
The churches that I went to, they refused to study science. They refused to study anything about the progression of humanity.
Oh, shit.
We were always stuck in the end days and New World Order.
Just a heads up, it is pretty windy in my area right now, so if the stream suddenly stops, it's probably because the power ends up going out. So, just a heads up, just in case something goes wrong.
And humanity, we were always stuck in the end days and New World Orders and, you know, the destruction of the temple and the Antichrist and Jesus returning, shredding through the cosmos and through the atmosphere with his white pony from the sky. yeah,
just so we're
to pick
prepared
us all
for it.
up and take us away.
He almost had a point here.
Look at this picture. He's doing the duck face. You could see it's no teeth, just all gums. It's the duck gums. I love it. Oh god. Oh man. What them gums do though? What them gums do? What them gums do? Imagine. Oh, it is. You're right. It is disgusting. I apologize. Oh no, not a gum job. Not a gum job. Oh, sorry, gorm job.
Just about. But it is not a reasonable expectation for a religion to share information that would outright argue against or entirely disprove their faith. Wouldn't that be counterproductive? How could such a congregation of people persist if they hand you something that negates exactly what they're teaching? It'd wipe their philosophical viewpoints right out. He later tried to suggest that his superiors within that sect of believers had already determined how they wanted his life to turn
Crazy
out.
eyes, Brett.
Them allegedly planning for him to have his own.
Also, you know what I noticed about that Blue Yeti microphone that he's using? He is pointing the top of it towards him instead of the front. Even though it is a condenser microphone, which typically is made for you to talk into the front of it, not in the top of it. And that Blue Yeti microphone usually comes with a manual. And they make it like a little cartoon manual so that even a kid can understand how to use it. But this dude is just like, fuck that shit. Just like, nah.
Open house of worship where he could spread the good word of the good Lord to the masses. This was only destined for him because he was so familiar with the Christian scripture. However, later in the same video, we'll see that this man is the furthest thing from what the teachings of Christ require of his followers.
They had already written out a plan for me for my life. They wanted me to be a preacher.
Just seeing that Blue Yeti being used incorrectly just bugs me so much.
They wanted me to be a minister, someone who owns his own cathedral, his own church, where I talk to people and tell people about the Bible, the good news, and that is one of the reasons why I know the Bible like I do.
The gourd news.
I was forced to study it.
A common tactic Brett used in his videos, from his early atheist days to whenever he was at his peak with his gourd believer content, was incorporating his friends and family into his videos as a means to say, hey, these people who I have some kind of influence over believe in this.
Yeah, that's another thing about Brett. Even though he believes in the Christian God, the divinity of Christ, the whole Trinity, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, and the Christian Bible and all that, he refuses to refer to himself as a Christian, but instead a God believer. Like, so, a Christian. No. A God believer. That's what a Christian is. I don't get it, man.
The same things that I do, so I must be right.
He's
Just
very
totally ignoring the
particular.
fact that he's using the same methodology that has been employed by his direct opposition, be they Christians, Muslims, pagans, or Jews, or any other denominations.
That's another one. Another Keenism is where he's listing off a group of people. It's always those groups in that exact order: Christians, Muslims, pagans, and Jews. And it's just like so many instances of that, of him doing it. where he's just like, Christians, Muslims, pagans, or Jews, or like Christians as well as Muslims, as well as pagans, and as well as Jews. And it's like, dude, stop. People start turning that into a song. It got to that point where it became a little jingle.
That you can think of. This is
Christians, Muslims, pagans, Jews, Christians, Muslims, pagans, Jews. That's the song.
a shitty roundabout way to deceive someone, and it doesn't just apply to religion. Anybody
I don't
can
get
apply
it,
the
man.
same logic to any idea or trend. This is what would-be internet orators would refer to as an appeal to the masses, or the bandwagon fallacy. The basic rundown of this fraudulent claim is that everybody is doing X, so it must—
Oh, look at him gum down that cheeseburger. Look at his stupid manatee face. Yeah.
be right.
He is gumming that burger down. So what if I have no teeth? It ain't gonna stop me from eating this fast food in a particular situation. I'm gonna find a way to get those goddamn calories in the situation.
Or it's acceptable to do Y thing because everyone else has done it at some point. This is a silly argument that can be destroyed with a classic if your friends were—
He has exercised those gums. Like, you would not believe. I want to see him gum down an apple. Oh, if there's anyone that could do it, it would be him.
Would you? But, you know, most people tend to freak out and bury their head in the sand when the sound of logic is presented. I mean, I can't blame them. I like sticking with what I know, or rather, have convinced myself that I know. His use of this ranges from interviewing his brother and questioning him about his views on philosophy and whatever else, or having his wife Dawn assist in the introduction of his videos by claiming that people were using vote bots to downrate his videos and flag him down, or even just including his children in the contents of his website. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with him interacting with the people that are
oh my god,
and even creating projects with them and whatever else. But when you use people who love and cherish you, incorporate them into some—
I know, right? How the fuck did he get— yeah, call CPS. Yeah, he is married and has children. It's true. Hello? Testing? Testing? Are we back? Are we good? Hello? Are we okay? My webcam is not working right for some reason. Never mind, it's working. Whoa! There's two of me. Alright. Are we okay? Are we— wait a minute. God damn it. Eh. I'm trying to get myself back on here, but there we go. I'm gonna give it a minute for everyone to come back. We good? We back? Can thou hear my voice? Oh shit. Alright. We good? Is everything normal? My audio normal? Alright, whoa. Alright. Right, we were down, but only for a second. Back. Right. So let's see. God damn it. Right, we're back. We're good. We're back. Think we're okay. Think so. I think we're okay. We're back. Huh? Oh. Okay. Wait, what the hell? That's right. I forgot to put on the right damn thing. Hang on a sec. Thought you were dead. Only for a second I was. Only for a second. I'm back now. Thank you for your concern. Only for a little bit was I did. Alright. I guess we'll pick up where we left off.
From interviewing his brother and questioning him about his views on philosophy and whatever else, or having his wife Dawn assist in the introductions to his videos by claiming that people were using vote bots to downrate his videos,
Vote bots.
or even just including his children in the contents of his website. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with him interacting with the people that are closest to him, and even creating projects with them and whatever else. But when you use people who love and cherish you, incorporate them into some kind of argument for something that is greater than you or them, it's intellectually dishonest.
He looks ridiculous.
Going to agree with them. He's the oligarch of the household. This isn't the case for everyone, but it's a shittily thrown together argument that implies that not only is he right, but so is his family and his friends, all to prove that his perception of reality is the undeniable absolute truth, and so on and so forth. Ugh.
And so on and so on.
Tastes like shit. Continuing forward, dissecting his content from the yesteryear, another classic video from around 17 years ago is Controlled Existence, where Brett laid out his views on why working a job impacts a person's life and their family unit, suggesting that perhaps investing some of your time into a career, while monetarily beneficial, is potentially damaging to a person's inner circle. Brett has never put in a hard day's work. Most people have had easy and difficult jobs, with the most exhausting ones being entrance level or manual labor, that sort of thing. I can tell you with absolute certainty that Brett has never had to use a shovel or a hammer. He's never ran a register or taken an order. He's never filled out and processed paperwork. He's never
there's no way.
Nothing. I'd argue that he's never even started a mower and trimmed up his lawn. As such, because of his limited experience,
dude, even I worked a regular job before doing this.
Brett fancied himself a writer, as if he's among those who can bring their ideas to life with a pen or word processing application.
What's really nice about being a writer for myself is that I get to spend a lot of time with my family and a lot of time with my children.
Oh,
not
Jesus.
a millionaire. I don't make money like Stephen King, and I'm not up there with Stephen Hawking or anything, nor Richard Dawkins, that's for sure. I'm just a guy who writes and makes a little bit off of what he works for.
Due to him having a plethora of free time, instead of cracking down on his literary expertise, he instead opts to waste his time bumming around his house and hanging out with his family. And that's totally fine. Every person should be able to hang out and lounge in their living room with their people. However, with the open work schedule that being a self-proclaimed writer introduces, you'd think he would use this as an opportunity to really refine his skill, in order to put out stronger stories that'll attract more interested eyes and eventually get him more money.
There's a lot of people out there who work really hardcore, strenuous jobs. People out there who work in restaurants, there's people who work in construction, and they spend a good amount of their days and hours trying to either build roads or construct new buildings and empires. How there's people out there that spend many, many months building churches and organizations. And
how would you know?
It's pretty rough when you think about it, because there's a lot of people out there who barely get to spend any hours whatsoever with their children.
Oh yeah, Brett, you're right. There are always people that are busting their ass to do good at their job, building
Why is it
society,
so
helping
close
the
to his
economy move
face?
along. Also, that way they can get paid and provide for those that they care about. But you know what's the most incredible part about all of this? Those people actually make money, and the ones doing the hardest work, like say construction, are probably making what you make in 3 months from selling your shitty little books in just a few hours of their time. We all have to make sacrifices when we're working, my man.
Is it no wonder why it is that people work dead-end jobs? Is it no wonder that people spend half their life going through schools, high school, college, universities, and whatever it takes so they can get the education that will ultimately set them on a path to where they'll be working for the
Set
rest
them
of
more
their
on a
life?
path.
Yeah, it sucks.
I love
It
the
really does,
Orn.
but that's merely
Love
part
it.
of the human experience.
It's so
Life is
stupid.
not going to be glamorous 100% of the time. Sometimes, despite how much effort a person puts into it, life isn't always that gratifying. Would it be awesome if we could work less, get paid more, and enjoy life to the fullest extent? Absolutely. But that is also an unrealistic expectation. Prior to humans organizing societies, we had to really fight to survive, or else we would die. That's essentially what has been happening since the dawn of society, and it's still happening today. It's just a hair easier to get by now. You either work or you go hungry. If you aren't happy with your job, it is your decision to go out and do your own thing. You can carve out quite a nice slice for yourself, but everything requires work and sacrifice.
They'll never have the time
That's true.
that they wish they had with their families. And by
What
the
their
time
families.
they get to be about 60, 70 years old and they're on some kind of pension or some kind of disability or Social Security or any of these things, they are too old at this point to play baseball with their kids, and their children are already grown up going through the same system they
Bryce
themselves
Boral.
had to go through. By the time parents end up getting to the point where they're free to have hours and time to spend with their kids, they're too old and they've got one foot in the grave and one foot barely hanging on. And I am very sympathetic, and I feel bad for the people out there that got to go through this.
Do you guys think he really thought he had some kind of profound discovery when he realized that people do get older and slow down, and that human lives in the modern age require you to invest your very precious time into working a job to make money and survive? God, that was a mouthful. Hasn't everyone already had this realization? You know, that we can't just enjoy every single moment of life. If
You would
want
think
something,
so,
you gotta
wouldn't
go
ya?
get it. If you want to
Not
spend more
Brett.
time with your family, you go do it. You shouldn't let a job tell you otherwise. There's more positions that you can fill if need be. Life is precious. Your friends and family are important.
Oh
And
my
if you
God.
feel like you aren't getting enough time with them and are very limited duration on this spinning green and blue ball, then perhaps you need to make changes to your very existence. Or, hear me out, you can become a nobody writer that doesn't make enough money to even justify doing your taxes. Just shout out a trilogy of god-awful stories that read like they were written by a blind 8th grader and see what happens. Brett has clearly got life figured out, and we're all just living in his shadow.
Today we
It's
are going to
true.
talk about one of the biggest
In Brett's mind,
failures
anyway.
of the Nation of Islam.
His success as
Islam.
one of the pioneers of the atheist skeptic genre on YouTube was unprecedented at the time. He had several thousand subscribers, and for that period, that was actually pretty impressive. That had to be exhilarating for him, probably made him feel like he was on top of the world. As his channel grew, he experimented with different types of content, one of which was calling preachers to debate them. You see, I don't know how things are where you're from, but around Brett's neck of the woods, it is not uncommon to see billboards on the side of the road that feature foreboding messages about God and creation and abortion and whatever else. It's usually kind of creepy, with vaguely threatening sounding scripture or quotes such as, "After you die, you will meet God." And then you see their phone number, etc., etc. I'm sure there's
After
somebody
you
out there
die,
that gets butterflies in their stomach
will
when they
meet
see a
God.
spooky advertisement like that. Brett obviously had seen these billboards before, and probably got irked by them. Now granted, witnessing a billboard calls his agoraphobia into question, but you know. He recorded a handful of videos back then,
semantics.
dialed the numbers on whichever billboard
Details,
he'd seen,
details.
and attempted to debate the finer points of faith with a person who is trained to discuss the topic from almost every angle. Did he expect to get anything out of this? Maybe insight or a new stance to consider his or their points from? It's possible, but it really just came down to him being shocking on video for the sake of attracting new viewers. It's a
Jesus,
good grift, and I can't
Bryce, he
say
looks
that I hate
nuts.
it, but it's definitely not an honest way to run your business. This was the early days of YouTube, so the concept of some large-bellied individual eating chili while bravely battling someone over their faith while they're just trying to do their job was quite controversial. Wouldn't it be great to go back to these simpler times? Things are so loud and scary now.
But a wooden picnic table that has graffiti written
Oh
all
my
over it with
God.
the words, the N-word on it.
Brett's content
With
became
the
more
words
prolific,
the
using titles and topics that would rustle the feathers of the easily
Christ.
offended back then. He also started to play around with video filters and effects to create unique intros for his content, all of which depicted him as some kind of epic badass who's got all of the answers and can probably beat the shit out of you. It's so funny to me when someone has a raw, edgy intro, and then the content of the video is just some fat guy laying in bed, flapping his toothless gums about shit he's not even entirely sure about.
If I started murdering
Yeah, it's wonderful, ain't it?
there'd be none of you left.
How about one more? We're gonna be fast forwarding a bit, but this clip is just chef's kiss.
Oh yeah, with an intro like that, you know the video's gonna be good. Oh my. Joey fucking...
Anyway, rolling back the clock a bit, one video of his that really tickles me.
Why does he
Christian
blend in with the snow?
are dung smearing cannibals. Yeah.
Oh,
I'm not even
Jesus.
joking. That's the angle he went for. It may have been from a place of ignorance, but I can't deny that it's pretty funny just how little self-awareness he had.
Mr.
and,
Evolution,
well, still lacks.
777.
Of ignorant ideas, Brett quotes a passage from
Oh,
Malachi,
no.
specifically 2:3. Behold, I will corrupt your seed and spread dung upon your faces, even the dung
Gross.
of your solemn feast, and one shall take you away with it. And tries to argue that God endorses smearing shit on people's faces. Therefore, God's wrong and not real.
Malachi chapter 2 verse 3
Olakai.
says, I will corrupt your seed and wipe dung on your face. The Bible actually says that
That's
God
nasty
is going
shit.
to take shit
Literally.
and wipe it on your fucking face. They don't teach that in Sunday school, now do they?
Next up, he brings up Jeremiah chapter 19, verse 9.
Not that
God
I'm
will
aware
cause
of,
them
no.
to eat the
They don't.
flesh of their sons and the flesh of their daughters, and they shall eat every one of the flesh of his friend in the siege and straitness, wherewith their enemies, and that they seek their lives shall straiten them. Wow.
Jesus.
Another thing that is taken out of
Pretty
context.
intense.
Who'da thunk, huh? But then again, I have no idea what context that sounds good in, but I digress. The problem with him bringing up these two unrelated excerpts from an ancient book is that, well, they don't matter. He was already predisposed to not believing in the stories depicted in the Bible. Why is it so hard for him to understand that people who accepted the earth was flooded and two of each animal were loaded onto a ship, and that the earth is flooded?
Just a reminder for everybody to support the original video. Gonna put the link back in here quick. Anyway. There we go.
Flat, and that we've only existed for roughly 6,000 years, and that the murder of your enemy's children is okay, would
Support the rogue internet man.
believe and accept the quotes listed.
Speaking of other yummy, tasty things for your belly welly, if you take a look at Jeremiah chapter 19,
I don't ever want to hear an old man talk like that
it
ever
says
again.
that God forces
I will
women to
actually
eat their own
shit.
fucking babies. Well, I suppose with a little bit of ketchup and mustard, we shall make it through. That's
Please.
right. The Bible actually
Please.
teaches cannibalism, ladies and
Brett,
gentlemen.
no,
It's right
please.
there in fucking black and white. You'd have to be a fucking dunce like the Pope not to understand.
Are the things he said nasty?
Oh, God.
Absolutely. As an atheist, I find what he said to be strange, but at the same time, it's religion. If you have a certain mindset, you can be convinced of anything. Humans are incredibly impressionable creatures, and we blindly follow
There is
any
not
sort
a
of idea
single
that makes
good
sense at the
picture
time,
of this
or
man.
even if it doesn't make sense, just as long
Or
as it
this
adheres to your faith
manatee.
system. I mean, look at the world around you. Every doctrine that is preached from any particular creed will usually be bizarre. People can be convinced to follow any idea, including ones that are hateful, intelligent, or kind. It's funny to point our fingers and laugh, but at the same time, this merely goes to show how fragile the human psyche is. I don't believe in a god, but I don't see the purpose in being hateful and attacking the beliefs of other people. Sure, I might think what they believe is ignorant or close-minded, but they think the same of me. Their requirements for proof are significantly different from mine, and there's plenty of reasons why people are the way they are. Here's an idea, Brett. Why don't you just have a thought-provoking discussion instead of being an asshole? Who am I kidding? I'm still gonna make jokes because I think they're funny. Everyone should joke about this stuff more. It doesn't have to be so serious. Eventually, people started to
Why
dig into
so
the story,
serious,
as many
Brett?
onlookers do with content creators they don't like, looking for any and all reasons to label him as a bad guy. Well, someone discovered that Brett had a domestic violence charge. Everybody screws up and breaks a law here and there. It happens. We all make mistakes. Some laws are incredibly stupid and require no real brain power to violate, but some, such as domestic violence, require a bit more effort on the aggressor's end. Simply put, you can't just accidentally beat the dog shit out of somebody. It's highly unlikely that someone will trip over something and then connect their fist with somebody's jaw 6 or 7 times.
Hurting the
Maybe it's
piss out
possible,
of
but I
them.
have some major questions regarding the causality of that. Brett was embarrassed of this charge, and rightfully so. It's a good thing to regret the poor decisions that you've made in the past. If you can't recognize where you did wrong, you can't grow as a person. But it's important to be honest about what happened, especially to yourself. He has attempted several times to cover his tracks and change history in reference to this charge. This is a perfect example of keen revisionism. There are 2 distinct videos that Brett
Keen
uploaded at separate
revisionism.
points where he tried to alter the events of what actually happened. There is a little bit of overlap between the retellings, but they are largely inconsistent. While we may never know the truth of what happened, it's important to go into this knowing that you're going to be fed a tale of bullshit. The truth likely lies somewhere in the middle, but it's going to take a lot of inductive reasoning rather than deductive. Video number 1 just shows his mug in front of the camera by his lonesome, doing his best to come up with a new scenario rather than explaining what had actually happened. Brett admitted there were 2 abuse charges, one involving his wife Dawn Keene, or rather Dorn because of how frequently he mispronounces her name, and Cindy Keene, his mother. When Brett was the wee age of 18, his mom was enduring a battle with cancer and just so happened to be devoutly religious. He visited with his dying mother, and she simply requested that he attended church with her, a simple request that would bring her a lot of comfort and solace, even if he didn't believe in the scripture. He alleged that his family was furious that he didn't follow their way of living, and as such he decided that he would not attend a sermon with his mom.
They're basically abuse charges. One that is towards Cindy Keene, and one that is towards my wife, Dawn Keene. I've only been married once. Cindy Keene is actually the name of my mother, who is dead. When I was 18 years old, my mother, as you all know, was sick. I pointed that out in my videos. She got cancer, and she was having a lot of issues and a lot of problems. She was also very, very heavily religious, as I pointed out in my videos. Well, what happened was that I came to my mother, and I was talking to her, and she asked me if I would attend church with her, and I said no. I don't want to go to church anymore. I don't believe in this stuff. And I was just starting to get out of Christianity, and
Not even for your dying mother.
He finally worked up the courage to tell an old woman who was staring death in the face that not only was he not going to church with her, but he didn't believe in her hocus-pocus, freaky-deaky, strange, kooky, mysterious, and spooky god stuff. She, a woman dying of cancer, threw him out of the house in retaliation. Rather than give her some time to cool off, he made the scholarly decision to continually knock on her front door and requested that she let him inside. Despite this, he was allegedly on the street for over half a year, but seemingly discarding how long he claimed to be on the streets, he persisted to knock on her door, to which she exclaimed that if he didn't leave her alone, that she would have to call the police to have him removed from the property.
So what happened was that when she found out, and I told her to her face finally that I don't believe in the whole God thing, and I don't believe in religion and all this
God
stuff.
thing.
She threw me out the fucking door.
He's so eloquent, the way he speaks.
And I continued repeatedly going up to the door and knocking and asking for my mother to let me back in. I said, Mom, I love you and I care about you, you know, but I just don't believe in this shit anymore. I don't want to be a part of this. And she would not open the door for me. I spent almost 6 months to 7 months out on the street because of the situation. Unless I agreed to go to church and become a Christian again. My mother told me that if I didn't get away from the door that she was going to call the police on me. She said, I don't want you around, you're a fucking demon, you're an antichrist, and all kinds of insults. Because my mother felt like if you weren't a believer in God, then you weren't nothing. And I hate to sit here and talk about my mother in this fashion because I love my mother and I respect her, and I know that she wasn't feeling good, that she was sick, she was dying.
She summoned law enforcement and he was promptly taken away, spending 2 hours in jail because he refused to leave the premises. This is what he claims was the domestic charge regarding his mom. Now, I'm not super well versed in the functioning of the legal system compared to people who are in that business, but wouldn't it be some kind of different charge? Domestic violence doesn't entail just knocking on a door and being a nuisance, but I don't know. The second charge was much more personal, involving his wife. He immediately brought up that one of his children was born with meningitis, which led to them having hydrocephalus. According to Mayo Clinic, hydrocephalus is the buildup of fluid in cavities called ventricles, deep within the brain. The excess fluid increases the size of the ventricles and puts pressure on the brain. He made sure to bring up how the stress of having a disabled kid was extremely difficult to deal with, because having sick children is not a pleasant experience. This is important because it was putting additional stress on him and Dawn. The two believed that their daughter was going to die, both of them entering a state of manic depression. Because of this, they separated soon after due to Dawn supposedly not being able to stomach looking at Brett anymore because, quote, she couldn't look at him anymore. She must have seen her child when she looked at him. I'm not gonna make any jokes here because this is dead serious.
My wife and I thought that our daughter was going to die. And my wife and I, we started breaking down basically and becoming depressed because of the situation. It was hurting.
The situation.
We weren't able to spend time with our son
Because of the situation.
we were constantly dealing with our daughter in hospital. So
And the situation.
We separated because she couldn't look at me anymore. When she looked at my daughter, she said that she seen me and she just couldn't be around me.
Dawn filed a restraining order against Brett to keep him away so she wouldn't have to lay her eyes upon him. This is where the first explanation ends, and while I'm sympathetic for the pain that they endured, I'm left with more questions than answers. I feel like he didn't properly address anything and just swept things under the rug without effectively explaining the actual conclusion as to what had spawned the charge. But sometime later, Brett uploaded another video that featured both himself and his lovely mac and cheese mixer Dorn. The trolls were
The mac and cheese
calling him
mixer.
a woman beater and defaming his already fragile character. There are some similarities within this retelling. However, there are a handful of distinct differences. I'm not going to sit down and beat you over the head with the same exact details, so if this coverage is shorter, you understand why. Dawn's manic episode was caused by the uncertainty of her daughter's life, because the doctors weren't exactly sure if she'd make it, and even if she did, she'd need to be closely monitored until she was stable, meaning that there was still no end in sight. Some of Dawn's family that didn't normally hang around were coming by more often due to the dire situation, and Dawn needed their emotional support.
Their dire
Her stepmother was a
situation.
nurse and offered to help her watch over
Gets
Keen's
me every
daughter.
time,
The
dude.
only requirement would be that Dawn and her baby would have to move out to the boonies and live on a farm with said family member. Well, that, and this woman also did not want Brett to have access to his child, encouraging Dawn to call him and tell him to stay away. This eventually piled up and caused the restraining order to happen. Instead, this time, the stepmother was the one to get it put in place. I gotta ask though, why? This doesn't make any sense.
The evil
Why did the
stepmother.
not like him? And how did she arrange this for Dorn?
Is that the woman didn't really want me involved, even though I'm the father. I'm the father of Angelica and Daniel, and she didn't want me around. So what she did was she asked for Dawn to
Dorn.
call me and tell me not to come around. And now Dawn didn't understand that whole situation, but Dawn had to make a
The whole
choice.
situation.
Gets into a big explanation with me about the situation, or
Come on,
fucked
dude.
up. It's a ridiculous situation, but the lady that
Brett, dude. That's 3. That's 3 in a row. Situation, la la da da da, situation, da 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 da, situation. Come on.
choice. She either gets into a big explanation with me about the situation, or it's fucked up. It's a ridiculous situation, but the lady around call me and tell me not to come around. And now Dawn didn't understand that whole situation, but Dawn had to make a choice. She either gets into a big explanation with me about the situation, or it's fucked up. It's a ridiculous situation, but the lady didn't want anybody else around.
Brett instructed Dawn to scoot closer to the camera and explain her side of the
Three
story. Dawn stated that her
situations.
stepmother did not want Brett at the farmhouse, and she was convincing and manipulative. So Dawn was easily swayed into pushing him away. This woman instructed Dawn to go to the police and lie about Brett, claiming that he beat her and whatever else. That is where the domestic charge allegedly came from.
She likes what she wants to like. She's the kind that likes to stick her nose in sometimes where it doesn't belong, and is very opinionated. So, she said, I can't get the restraining order, but you can. I said, well, I don't really want to get a restraining order. And through this time, I kept in contact with Brett. And, she says, well, this is what you have to say. And basically, she said, you have to say that he beat you, he hit you, he does this, he does that.
Now, like I said, we've received two different explanations here, and they don't exactly line up. There's definitely some overlap, but why did the first explanation have less contextual information than the second? Even then, neither of these stories even make all that much sense.
Yeah, and there was no mention of the stepmother in the first explanation of the domestic abuse charges. So it's like, what's that about, Brett?
The restraining order thing might work, but it feels off. The fact that he's willing to omit pertinent details from the first video makes me feel like there's more to the story than the two of them are willing to share. I suppose it is their business and not ours. They could have just ignored the dumb drama, but Brett's willingness to try to cover his tracks leads me to believe that he did do something and he doesn't want it to be out there. Sometimes, man, your decisions come back to haunt you. It is what it is. All that can be done at that point is to just do better. But this is Brett, and attempting to better himself just wouldn't make sense. Unrelated to this
That's
stuff,
not
I
his
also can't think
specialty.
of any other time to
Not
bring
this
this up.
picture
Brett
again.
has claimed that his father was very abusive and knocked all of his teeth out. He has also told conflicting stories about how he didn't take care of his choppers and how he defaced his mouth.
My dad punched me in the face and knocked out all my teeth out in the situation.
But the main tale he always falls back on is his dad repeatedly rearranging the configuration of Brett's smile with his fist.
How many atheists do you think got killed during the reign of Zeo the Dong?
Zeo the Dong! That's another classic Keenism. So, you're familiar with Mao, right? Mao Zedong? Or Mao Zedong? He said, instead of that, okay, first of all, he mispronounced rain as Rhine. And he called Mao Zeo the Dong. Zeo the Dong! The rind of Zeo the Dong. What a fucked up name that guy's got. What the fuck? Oh no. Brett. What the hell, man? How did you mess that one up so bad?
His child's condition was actually used as a weapon during one of his countless online squabbles with a content creator known as Fake Sagan. Fake Sagan, also known by his real name Christopher Anderson, is a former atheist ponage YouTuber, where two or more shovel-headed idiots hurled insults at each other until one found the way to dismantle the public image of their enemy
shovel-headed
and was declared
idiots.
Victorious. Fake Sagan was friends with
I thought it was
various
water-headed.
YouTubers, namely the Amazing Atheist. Those two had a spectacular falling out that was both dramatic and horrifying. If you want to know more, take a look around. If I spend the entire video breaking down every associated drama, we could be here for quite a while.
Yeah, there's a lot of side characters in the Brett Keane lore.
Continued to poke large holes in the character of the Brettster. Brett panicked and struggled to find his perfect gotcha to take him down. Calling him a piece of trash and scum of the earth wasn't going to cut it this time. Brett sought to falsify a message that Fake Sagan allegedly would send him. He created a fraudulent email where Fake Sagan would threaten Brett's water-headed idiot, meaning his sick child. Other than it being a really shitty thing to fake, is that Brett shared this email on video with a timestamp that was after he had already claimed that Sagan had done this. So
He
close,
exposed
Brett, yet so
himself.
far. The burden of proof is always on the accuser, and of course,
He
without
called
fail,
his own sick kid a water-headed idiot. An attempt to try to own somebody else. Oh my god, so stupid.
He managed to screw up the easiest misinformation campaign that he could have ran. This is back when people just took everything at face value because we were all collectively dumber back then. But he fumbled it. Nicely done, Brett. Fake
Oh,
Sagan was the
no.
kind of person who would admit when he did underhanded shit because he thought it was funny. At least, he did back then anyway. He denied these claims, and without sufficient evidence, Brett's claims fizzled out. So, when you get down to it, Brett really did convince himself that shit-talking his own disabled daughter would be the key to destroying the reputation of some loser on the internet. This ain't checkers, bud. It doesn't get much simpler. If you want to know more about Fake Sagan, there's plenty more content about him on YouTube if you go searching. Forewarning, he gets pretty crazy and starts playing with guns, so some of his antics are not for the faint of heart. Before I forget, this isn't really tied to anything in particular, but Brett did dip his toes into the creation of music with his brother, Justin. His main claim to fame was his hit single, Father. Give it a listen.
What kind of father sits and watches his children get molested, sodomized and raped? What kind of father allows his children to starve to death? What kind of father lets his children freeze to death in the cold? And what kind of father will judge you?
What the actual fucking deed.
Isn't it
I share that
strange
feeling,
that
Kian.
physical
What the
setting-
actual fuck? Oh, Jesus. I just... Oh my god. I'm just, oof. I mean, it's certainly a song. It is certainly some type of performance. God. He looks...
Anyhow, moving
Oh,
along,
no.
how else can we inspect the credibility of Brett Keane to further understand his lack of integrity? Well, he's a tried and true plagiarist. That should certainly piss somebody off. Many years ago, Brett uploaded a video where he featured a poem that he claimed to have written himself. In this upload, he showed his face and had the words of the poem plastered over the screen in some classic Windows Movie Maker flair. The problem with him doing this wasn't just that he had stolen somebody else's work and barely modified it, but he really thought that nobody would ever think to just Google the words. Someone obviously
Yeah, he
had this
didn't think
bright
anyone would
idea,
notice.
first searched his bullshit writing and discovered that he had plagiarized a poem by Judy Burnett. This is merely one instance of several attempts at thievery. To confirm this, let's read through both poems, shall we? They're short and painless, mostly. Here's Brett's rendition. So many images race through my mind whenever I speak your name. It seems without you in my life, things will never be the same. What happened to those days when I was just a child? The innocence, when my love was consumed in you, in your life and in your smile. What happened to all those times when I always looked to you? No matter what happened in my life, you always got me through. I turned to see your face, yet in my turning, it seems the sound has been erased when life does not make sense. Who will be there to hold me close when the pieces just don't fit? If I could turn back time and once more hear your voice, I would tell you always know I love you and no one can take your place. Years may come and go, but your memory will never be
Just
erased.
imagining it in his
Judy,
voice.
what happened to those times when I always looked to you? No matter what happened in my life, you could make my gray skies blue. Dad, some days I hear your voice and turn to see your face, yet in my turning, it seems the sound has been erased. Dad, who will I turn to for answers when life does not make sense? Who will be there to hold me
Already
close
sounds
when
pretty
the pieces
similar.
just don't fit? Oh, Dad, if I could turn back time once more and hear your voice, I'd tell you that out of all the dads, you would still be my choice. Please always know I love you and no one can take your place. Years may come and go, but your memory will never be erased. Today, Jesus, as you are listening in your home above, would you go and find my dad and give him all my love? Bretty Boy got called out for this by many people, as expected, and his troubling inability to be a reliable narrator was called into question. Notable YouTuber at the time, Judalicious, pointed out Brett's blatant plagiarism and managed to get a recording of her confronting his sorry ass. The audio is a bit messy and he sounds distorted for whatever reason. He has claimed up and down for over 10 years that this is just modified, chopped together recordings, but I just don't buy it. Sure, it sounds off, but I don't know. Give it a listen. You be the judge.
I don't want this to to get ugly, and I'd like to be really civil with you, because I know that you have a bit of a hard time on YouTube. I've just got one question, really, which I think would make a huge difference if you could answer it honestly. I don't know how you feel about answering questions.
Well, you know me, I don't answer questions.
Well, the only thing I want to know
Hell?
is, you
The
remember the
fuck?
whole thing about your poem and the Judy Bennett debacle that we had?
Well, I don't know anything about it being my poem.
Why does he sound like he's in an echo chamber?
Okay, well, what I wanted to ask you, Brett, was you said in a video recently that that if someone makes a mistake, then a really good thing to do is to hold their hands up and to admit that mistake, so that people really respect them a lot more. I was just wondering, in the light of what was a small mistake I think that you made by not admitting that that poetry wasn't yours, I'm just wondering why you wouldn't hold your hands up to that.
So you basically, you'd like me to say that I'm a plagiarist, a woman beater, child abuser, and everything else, right?
No, I don't want you to admit to those things. I just would like you to admit that you're human, that you made a mistake, and that probably in hindsight, a better way to have dealt with it would have been to say, yeah, I should have credited Judy, and I shouldn't have made it look like it was my own poem. Because not only I saw it, Brett, about 200 or 300 people saw you do it.
You know what I actually feel bad about doing, Delicious? I feel bad about being mean to you as well as how I've been in the past. So I'm the karma's like calling me a cow.
As well
That's
as...
what I feel bad about. But do I feel bad for plagiary? No.
Brett's successes in the YouTube game were astoundingly short-lived. He was making enemies left and right, which in turn negatively impacted his image. When people confronted him about the opinions he held regarding politics and religion, he'd respond, but once the electronic exchange of insults and logical fallacies became too much, he tried to strike people down, and he was successful in this for the most part. But that doesn't mean it went unnoticed. This made people question the integrity of his character because he had tried to sell himself as someone who was all about debates and dissecting thought, but then he would try to silence the people that merely disagreed with him because they presented better rhetoric. What other shady shit was he into? There's actually a video where Brett admits to abusing YouTube's tools in order to silence his critics. Now, his reasoning for this is that other people were already doing
Yeah,
it
he
to
like
him,
false
but what makes this
reports
quite the
a bunch of
peculiar cover
people.
story is that he just seems to be so familiar
Or at
with
least
the
he
health and
did back
safety tool
then.
from that
I don't
time.
know about
If
now.
he was doing this as a single retaliatory thing, surely he wouldn't be able to navigate it so well. However, he instead opted to record himself reporting people for bullshit. He later tried to deny this.
Let me show you how this works. And don't cross your fingers or get your hopes up that YouTube's actually going to look at your videos and try to figure out if they actually violate terms of service or not. Because we both know that all your videos violate terms of service. Let's see, what shall we go with? Harassment or hate speech? Well, you are full of hate, so we'll just go with fucking hate speech. Let's see what we got here. Yep. Goodness gracious, a lot of you have made comments about disabled people, so let's go ahead and go with that. Who shall we type in? Should it be Napalm or Coughlin today?
Jesus
I
Christ.
gotta get my keyboard real quick. Dun, dun, dun.
You didn't already have your keyboard set up to begin with?
Okay, we'll go with Coughlin 000. Or what do you think? Let me see. Maybe 616. We'll do 616 right afterwards, after I report every goddamn video on the channel. Let's see what we got. Should we go with age, gender, disability, veteran, sexual orientation? Well, you guys have called me homosexual. You have called me some names having to do with sex and all that, so we'll go with that first.
You have called me homosexual, so I'm reporting you for anti-homosexuality situation.
You've also said some things about America, so maybe we'll go with race or ethnic origin in a little bit as well.
He was making new channel after new channel, and no matter what he did, he'd eventually get run off the site for the umpteenth time. Well, that or he'd quit for all of 5 days and return to no fanfare. Other YouTubers were cashing in on the growing market of atheist commentary and challenging the status quo put in place by the devout. People such
TJ,
as
where the
Amazing
fuck is your
Atheist
shirt?
had already surpassed Brett's placement on total subscriptions, and he quickly made a name for
Listen, TJ, I admit, got some nice man titties. A time and a place, mister. Now is not the time or the place.
himself, something that'd later be tarnished by a bruised banana and one particularly impacted rectum. TJ actually used to be a fan of Brett, but stepped away from him when he learned of all the questionable practices that were in place regarding Brett's channel. It didn't really take long for TJ and his bombastic presentation to exceed far beyond anything Mr. Keen could have dreamed of having achieved. Now, get this. Brett is actually convinced that TJ, the amazing atheist, masterminded the downfall of Brett Keane, as if it wasn't his own wacky-ass behavior that garnered him so much negative attention. It didn't matter that people other than TJ had already outperformed Brett, but he was going to continue to point his smelly
He just
finger and
refuses to
blame
take
others
any
for his own
responsibility.
screw-ups. Brett's notoriety online as a YouTube atheist came to a climax when he had entered a bit of a financial struggle. Somehow, shockingly, to everyone's surprise, he was unable to sell enough crappy books in order to sustain his lifestyle. I guess
I'm
making
shocked.
9 sales every 6 months wasn't going to cut it unless he jacked the price of his book up about $500 a piece. Brett went to his YouTube following, cupping his hands and begging for the pocket change of people that were already starting to question him. We've all had
Pocket
moments where we
change.
need a few dollars and whatever else, and it's okay to ask for help from time to time. I don't have any qualms about that, but you gotta be able to help yourself. Some Christian viewers saw past his staunch atheism and gave him some money to help out. According to Brett, these religious types were the only ones that were willing to help him, and he realized from this point forward that he was wrong for lacking a belief in God, and instead decided to dedicate his life to the teachings of Christ. This was quite the unexpected change for the channel, but in reality, it was probably just a realization that there was more money to be made by swindling people who were kind-hearted and just want to spread love, even if he actually believes that their religion has some bizarre, hateful rhetoric at its core. Because of this, Brett dropped the atheist persona and transitioned into a theist. He's flip-flopped on the integrity of his theological beliefs since, but he has largely remained Christian. He's argued against this, instead referring to himself as a God believer, or rather a gourd believer if you factor in his peculiar way of speaking, despite the fact he believes in the divinity of Jesus Christ and follows his teachings, which by and large would make him a Christian. This was seemingly
You would
a
think
method to
so,
attempt
wouldn't
to shield
ya?
himself from the criticism of others online, as if he was
Joke's
hounded for
on
believing
you.
in something hypocritical
A
with a
gourd
Christian
believer.
doctrine. However, he instead says, "Hey, don't burn me at the stake. I'm not a Christian. I'm a gourd believer." Yeah, sure, Brett. That's right. Brett coming on as a born-again Christian was very controversial. On one
Jesus.
hand, many non-believers felt that this was a sign that Brett lacked integrity and could be easily swayed into believing something that he previously fought so valiantly to disprove, while others remembered the recent accusations of plagiarism
That's a
online.
terrible
So,
dye
as you
job.
would expect,
You can still see, like, the grayness right at the hairline. And right at where his beard begins, too. You can still see the gray.
they were quick to denounce Brett's recent Christian conversion. Both sides had good arguments. I mean, how could Brett possibly believe in the Christian God after spending years of picking apart that belief system, pointing out the hypocrisies and imperfections within the stories of the Bible, that sort of stuff? With Brett being confirmed to be a through-and-through liar and potential scam artist, his character should definitely be called into question. Most people can be manipulated into believing or doing certain things, so who's to say that Brett wouldn't take this opportunity to mislead people who were convinced of his newest religious misadventure?
Turn your fucking audio off! Alright, cocksucker.
Brett unknowingly undid everything that
I think it was playing, what was this? One of the Elder Scrolls games. Just getting pissed off. That's some of the people playing online. Oh, shit.
Alright, cocksucker.
Brett unknowingly undid everything that he had built up. But then again, it's not like he was ever intelligent enough to play 4D chess and outplay
Getting
his
trolled
detractors.
on his own
This
live
gave
stream.
plenty of ammunition to the people that did not like him. And Brett being Brett, he would inevitably respond and stomp his feet in an all-caps rage. People tend to get pretty nasty when discussing religion online, and atheists are certainly no exception. I've seen and heard quite a few atheists say some downright sickening, reprehensible things about people they dislike due to differing opinions. I really wish I was joking. This means that Brett was now on the receiving end of criticism from the very same people he bumped shoulders with when tearing down creationists. But with this, Brett would ultimately fade into obscurity for some years. He'd make a new channel, show his ass, and inevitably make a fool of himself, take his disgraced leave, and wait all of 15 minutes before deciding to return again. And again, and again,
Brett Keane's
and
cycle,
again.
folks.
This is actually the same exact thing he does to this very day. At the time of the making of this video, he's still up to his same bullshit, now with some kind of fringe QAnon conspiracy
Very
nonsense
crazy.
thrown in, but we'll touch on that in just a bit. After being turned into a huge laughingstock by his former peers and most self-aware theists, Brett had to settle for his own tiny corner of the internet. Other dim-witted
You are
creationists
correct,
have entered and
Gross
left
Lake.
his circle, making their names known
It
and
is
attracting
crazy.
plenty of unwanted attention. Brett would eventually have his own cabal of like-minded
Like,
Christians who were
after,
in need of
like, this has been going on for at least 20 years now, and this dude has not changed at all.
direction, and instead of looking toward their god for guidance, they turned to a would-be snake oil salesman. I say would-be because that'd require Brett to be at least semi-convincing at wheeling and dealing, but you know. Many of his followers were just nondescript God believers who were somehow charmed by Brett's stunning lack of teeth. He'd host Google Hangouts for upwards of 8 to 12 hours where he'd just sit around and do, well, nothing. He'd often invite atheists to come into his controlled Thunderdome so he could debate them.
Yeah, teeth for a little bit.
I mean name call and use shitty arguments to tear them down. The same exact rhetoric that he was relying on even back in his old non-believer days. And don't forget, this is worse behavior than that woman he complained about earlier in the video. During these various streams, he'd often wander off to take a shit due to his intake of French vanilla coffee, or so he claimed anyway,
French vanilla situation.
He's gone for upwards of 20 or more minutes, and in rare cases, even an hour. These streams were his means of consistent content creation, especially with the rise of popular formats like live streaming or podcasts. Unfortunately for him, those damn dirty atheists were working on something that had definitely put him in some hot water. In 2014, the legendary show was created by TJ Kirk, his sibling Scotty, and their friend Ben. They created a show called the No Bullshit Podcast, which was later renamed to The Drunken Peasants. This was one of the biggest
awesome show, by the way,
on the internet at the time, and was notorious for featuring irreverent discussions on politics, theology, sex, and everything else, really. It was a show of everything to some extent. Brett learned of this and honed in on the show, furious that TJ was still expanding his then growing business model. Brett and his gaggle of goons appeared in a handful of episodes, and a long-standing feud was born. These debates on the DP channel were always a loud, unintelligible shit show where everybody attempted to talk over each other and nothing was ever properly discussed. At best, you got anecdotal observations about the world. At worst, you'd hear some potty language. Tough shit, huh? The show's hosts, later including Paul Zigo, would systematically dismantle the Brett Keane business model by clowning on him every other episode. They managed to bring people's attention to some of the following hilarious Keane traits: his lack of teeth, his vernacular, individual, situation, particular, gourd. He has this verbal tick where he can't pronounce certain words like God or the name of his wife, Dawn. Pronouncing them as
yeah, he can't even pronounce the name of his own wife correct sometimes. That's rough.
This, coupled with his overuse of certain words like individual and situation, tends to make his way of speaking unintentionally hilarious. His perpetual failures in the YouTube business, his mannerisms, his love of chili, macaroni and cheese, and other easy-to-eat soft foods. Funnily enough, Brett's affinity for macaroni and cheese and chili and other casserole-type meals was a point of contention for him. The show's host would always poke fun at the fact that he ate chili on videos, smacking his lips, seemingly complaining that Dorn didn't load up his bowl of chili with some sharp and creamy shredded cheese. That would have really spruced up the flavor to his delectable meat slop. Say what you will, but I think Brett not only popularized the mukbang genre, but he really outdid everyone else.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brett Keane.
Oh no.
Radio. Make sure you check out my gaming channel, Games You Love, and when you get an opportunity, check out all my other YouTube channels, including my brother's and my new Movies You Love channel.
All bullshit aside, why do people want to watch others eat food? That's just weird, man.
I don't know.
Brett would always try to one-up them by digging up unrelated drama, working his best to create hit piece after
Why the
hit
purple
piece that'll
filter,
fail.
Brett?
Brett
Why?
was just too damn sad and incapable of creating anything worthwhile. Anytime he tried to one-up the peasants, they'd just call him the manatee, and his arguments would immediately deflate. Why did they call him that? Well, it's kind of obvious. Look at him. It's because he looks like one. See? Isn't it crazy? If calling him a dipshit manatee moron individual didn't work, they could always bring up the fact that he called his disabled child
He's
a
a manatee.
waterhead. And Brett would immediately whine and complain and try to suggest that the DP crew was attacking his family. God, what an awful situation to be in. Maybe if he didn't act like a tool, this wouldn't have happened.
He changed it a little though. The Jesus countdown with Jesus.
The final Brett down.
Oh yeah, it's Brett Keane. Come on, Jesus. Jesus.
There needs to be an epilepsy warning on that.
The show would continuously rag on him, offering him money to sit in on streams where they confronted him for his misdeeds, or wagging some dollars in his face to eat a hamburger. wanted to watch Brett gum on a burger, but it had to be something substantial, not some rinky-dink shitty soft McDonald's cheeseburger, but something that'd have a bit more of a bite, you know? Some real American delicacy shit. Brett did fail to follow through with this as requested, instead eating, you guessed it, a crappy little McDonald's sandwich. Honestly, one of my favorite things DP ever did was acquire GodHatesYou.org. The URL books, making it redirect to the Drunken Peasants YouTube page. This feud continued even after the core DP group disbanded. To this day, Brett is still mauling over the vile actions of the Gore deniers. But that's okay, because Brett only wants to hang out with Christians, Muslims, pagans, and Jews. His words, not mine. During Brett's ongoing battles with the Drunken Peasants, he continued to create and destroy his own channels as he saw fit. This is the same method of brand expansion that he was doing from the very beginning. I've scoured the internet in hopes of finding every instance of a channel that he's ever owned, but I was unfortunately unsuccessful. Some of the channels he's used over the years are, but are certainly not limited to, Mr. Evolution 777, one of his original aliases for his pre-Christian content. This channel also seems to be the starting point for his edgy persona that he struggled to drop for years. Gone TV Radio, his most consistent and current identity for his Christian content. If you're trying to find Brett in the modern age, Gone TV Radio is the best way to find him. He's actually pretty fond of this moniker, despite how often it's been used to disparage him because of how fucking stupid the channel name actually is. I mean, I get why he includes God, and I suppose the TV parts, but what part of what he does is actually radio? Even then, for the sake of argument, let's say he wasn't a radio. The meager few listeners that the platform even still has would either shut their systems off or potentially drive their personal vehicles into the side of buildings to avoid having to listen to him drone on about boring crap like church. Games You Love. This channel is arguably one of the most laughed at because he really thinks of himself as an avid gamer. What games did he play?
Change the channel.
Hardcore shit like The Sims,
or turn off the radio.
Elder Scrolls, World of Warcraft, Necopara, Fallout, you know, very intense shit. I was joking about the Necopara part, obviously. Or at least I hope he isn't playing that, but I also would not be surprised. Now I'm stuck with the mental image of Brett cranking his hog to cat girls. Yuck. He still uploads an occasional video game related video to his Gone TV radio pages, but it tends to remain consistent to his Games You Love broadcast, where he just aimlessly rambles into his microphone while smacking his toothless gums and meandering in Starfield. Movies You Love. This channel was basically more of the same, but this time geared towards discussing the complexities of cinema. It should go without saying that this channel was unremarkable and didn't last long. Despite fancying himself a movie critic, he loathed certain genres like horror and sexual content. In fact, he'd roll his eyes and complain about a movie featuring a sex scene despite going into detail in other videos about how he'd love for a woman to dominate him. Just wanted to throw that in there so I can pollute your minds with more keen-related smut. He's definitely had a lot of channels, huh?
Manatee
it's really
smut.
Not like a leopard can change its spots, so I shouldn't be surprised. He's a creature of habit, and his habitual ritual is being successfully unsuccessful at everything he does. Whenever one of his channels became too much for him to maintain, he'd delete his shit and return a few months later. I mean, mood, but I don't know. If I were in his shoes, I would have given up after crashing and burning 20 channels back to back. That's also not taking into account how many times he's been kicked off YouTube for violating its TOS. Another thing to note is that DP brought attention to Brett's fraudulent operations regarding money. Brett would often ask his viewers for money, as many content creators do. That's fine. Anybody who's got a following has likely asked for money at some point, and that's generally harmless. However, Brett has tried multiple times to raise money for vehicles or medical expenses or his utilities, yet the amounts that he asks for tend to pair up pretty closely with his Amazon wish list. But that's just a coincidental situation.
It's a
coinkydink. Brett, whose entire career is built upon lies and deceitful actions, wouldn't just say one thing and then do another, right? Could somebody who's legally inclined let me know in the comments whether or not this would-be bait-and-switch tactic is even legal? In the years since DP's expiration date having come and passed, Brett has continued to reappear online just to slam his gargantuan foot on the accelerator, spinning his tires in the mud for Gord knows how long. He will still slander anybody that he doesn't trust because they don't hold the same political, social, and theological ideals that he does, which is hilarious because he's morally dubious at best. Don't agree with his politics? You're a pedophile. Don't like the way he handles criticism? You're a heathen atheist who needs to burn in hell. Question his integrity? You're a filthy communist. He still obsesses over TJ, blaming him for the downfall of his illustrious YouTube career when he was still in an atheist situation. It's bizarre to me that he's still so hung up about the blunders that were his previous channels when he lacked faith in Gord. Shouldn't he be happy that he isn't a non-believer individual anymore? Having come to find the warmth of God's grace to be comforting? If there's anything to take away from the story of Brett Keane, it's that there is a lot of unscrupulous people in the world, and most of them will do their damnedest to convince you that not only are they good people, but they deserve your undivided attention, your finances, and ultimately your love.
individuals.
He only turned to faith because of his inadequacy in creating anti-establishment content towards organized
Ridiculous,
religion,
man.
which
Just
of course turned out to work
ridiculous.
to his detriment. And unfortunately for him, his toxicity bled into whatever he tried to make. He will always respond negatively to the slightest bit of criticism. He will always be consistent in failing at every little venture that he dips his toes into. This all, ultimately, is just so that way he can justify not working. He will never be an illustrious writer. He will never be a prolific or groundbreaking YouTuber. Or at least he'll never recapture the brief moment of relevancy he had when he was an atheist, and then again when he was getting viciously dunked on by DP for good reason.
Hello, my name is Brett Keane, and I regret to tell you all that this is going to be the end of Brett Keane doing videos. My videos will stay up on the different channels that I posted them on, but I think that I have done more than enough of my share to entertain.
In his mind,
always
he's
the
an esteemed
Orn!
individual and content creator situation. I suppose in life, the opinions of other people should matter a touch less than your own about yourself. And honestly, I do admire how he's able to mindlessly suck his own asshole clean despite having a record of being one of the lowest of the low on the YouTube platform. He might try to flag this video down, but there's nothing here that could make it easily done. I've sourced all of my information from various spots on the internet, but the most important source has been the plethora of Drunken Peasants podcast VODs that are still available to watch to this very day. The Drunken Peasants podcast is definitely not what it used to be, and that's sad. However, it's good to know that somehow it has still managed to survive despite Brett's attempts to totally wipe the show off the face of the earth. One of the craziest things to me is that Brett is merely the tip of the iceberg when it comes to shady people trying to separate others from their pity and money. Odds are you've known someone that's just like him and you do what you can to keep them at arm's length. There's basically an unlimited amount of people like this online. You just gotta know where to look. I hope you guys enjoyed taking a bit of time to peer into the obscure life of Brett Keane. I know he's not as exciting as other lolcows, but I think he's certainly worth a look. Some people have debated on whether or not Brett is a lolcow, and I gotta say that I'm in the camp of him being one. He's not your typical type of cow, but he has definitely been and will continue to be milked for laughs. His infamy on the internet is the highest point of his life, and it was already banned before, so imagine just how far he's sunken by now. Even scarier, imagine how much farther he'll go. So really, look at Brett and take a few lessons from his mistakes and not the messages in his words. Don't be a false flagging prick. Don't needlessly harass people by slandering them and then crying wolf when you're caught. Don't
be a
around trying
Brett.
to harm people because you're an angry, toothless, bedridden bum who can't make friends. And most importantly, and I cannot stress this enough, just be kind. Do better by being the best person you can be, and don't succumb to the teachings of the manatee. But that being said, that's gonna be it for today's video. If you like what I do, leave a comment, rate it,
Don't be a
subscribe.
manatee. That's the moral of this story. Don't be a manatee. Shit. So yeah, that was Brett Keane. That was Brett Keane, ladies and gentlemen. That was the manatee. Alright. I think that's all I got for now. So, thank you everybody for tuning in. It was nice to come back after a little while. It's been pretty fun, as always. I'll see you in the next one.